Right now we're going to go over entering data into a workbook. There's a couple of different ways you can get data into the workbook, and we'll just kind of go over those basic ways. So the first is just entering whatever information you want to enter. So say you just wanted to enter name, you would type name, hit enter. You could type it right into the cell, or you can type it into the formula bar and you'll get the same thing. So that's one way. Another way to get data in is to import it from text. So if you go up to the your ribbon and click on the data tab, and you'll see a button called from text. So if you click from text and wait for a pop-up window, you can browse your computer or network, whatever you have access to. I've already created a small file, and I'll use sample list 2. Double click on it, and you'll see another the text import wizard pops up. There are different settings that you can go through. For the sake of simplicity right now, I'll just kind of walk through it quickly without going into detail. But you'll see, most importantly, a section here. My header has data, or my data has headers. Checkbox. You can see I've just got a list Joe, Jane, Fred, Max. You don't see any sort of header there, so we can leave that unchecked. And then you just hit next. And where we only have one column, we don't need to worry about this. This is a delimiter. It's what, if you have multiple columns, what would separate each column. So how Excel is going to know that this column has ended and we're on to the next column. So we can put it in columns A, B, C, D. But where we only have one here, we don't need to worry about that. Hit next. And this is just dealing with the format. Click finish. And then here it's asking you where you want to place the data. It'll start off by suggesting where the active cell currently is. Right now it's in cell A1, so it's saying it wants to go there. Generally that's where you want to put it. Click OK, and you'll see that you've got the list there. And I wanted to show you the importing, because sometimes you'll have files that aren't in one list, and you'll have them set up into columns, and you'll need to adjust those. So just quickly, I'll show you importing it from text, and we'll use sample list, the first one that I have. And you'll see we've still got those same names, Joe, Jane, Fred, and Max. But notice how they've got a semicolon after each. It's not going down each row. So we want to make sure it's delimited, because we see the semicolon there, and then we can select semicolon as a delimiter. So now you'll see that you've got the lines there, so you'll see that it's separated into columns. We can hit next. Next, same as it was, finish. And then, because that's our active cell. So in most cases we'll want to see these as a list instead of a column, and the easiest way to do that, to fix that, is to transpose the data. So if you highlight all of them and then copy it, so I hit Control C to copy, and you select a cell to paste it into. If you right click, you'll see paste options. Transpose is an option. So see how it flips it? Instead of going across, it goes down into a listing there. So that's how you'd handle that kind of data. And then another type of entry is, let me make sure that's not active. If you have an active cell like this, which means it's selected, you can unselect it by hitting the escape button. Alright, so and the other thing would be entering a formula. So that's anything where you would be possibly adding a couple of numbers together. So let's say I've got the numbers 1 in cell A1, 2 in cell A2. And I want to see what the sum of those are. So to get the sum, we use the sum formula. So in there, anytime you write a formula in Excel, it needs to start with the equals sign. So you hit equals button, and then whatever the formula is. In this case, we want the sum, so we use the sum formula, sum, and then we want A1, and we want A2. So again, we see equals sign and then our formula. Hit enter, and that's that. And the last way is an array formula. So an array formula is another type of formula, but the only difference is instead of hitting enter to enter the value in, you hit control shift enter. So for an array formula, we're basically taking a set of numbers. In this example, we're going to multiply it by another set of numbers and have the result in another column. So say we have salesperson, number of sales, and then we go amount. And we can expand all of these columns so that they fit by highlighting and then double clicking on one of the edges. So we'll say salesperson A, B, C, and then we'll say salesperson A did 2 sales, salesperson A did 3, and then he did 2. And then the amount was for, we'll just keep it consistent, for $5. Or 5 units without putting anything in there. And we want to total that up. So to do an array formula, we'll highlight all of these and we'll enter our formula bar. We'll hit equals, and since it's an array, we're doing a range. We want B2 all the way down to C2. We're multiplying that by...
You did D2.
You're right, I did. This is my son telling me I made a mistake. To B4. Oops. Now the pressure's on. I got eyes. Times C2 to
Are you
C.
going to do algebra?
Something like that. And then once you get that in there, instead of hitting just enter, you want to hit control shift enter. And so I see we got 2 times 5 equals 10, 3 times 5 equals 15, 2 times 5 equals 10. So that formula is all right. But notice the squiggly, the curly braces on each side of it. That's the difference between a formula and an array formula, without getting into too much detail on where to use those. So that covers basically how to enter in data into Excel in a couple of different ways.